Okay, I stipulate that all of these things, when they happen, offend me very much. I'm offended by them, I want you to understand. It goes to the core of what I do and what I am. The First Amendment doesn't just provide me with a living, the First Amendment is my life. When it's infringed, I am offended. I have claimed the right to be offended. Do not claim the right to go and burn down someone else's place of worship, to threaten their relative with violent reprisal, to picket their home, to publish their name in threatening terms on the internet. I won't do any of that. It doesn't mean I can't be offended, but it does mean that I'm even more offended by those who claim the right not just to be offended, but to seek violent reprisal, as is so vividly and currently being done by the votaries of the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, as I've said, I think that all religions are wrong in the same way, in that they privilege faith over reason, but they're not all equally bad in the same way all the time. I mean, if I'd been writing in the 1930s, I would certainly have said that the Roman Catholic Church was the most dangerous religion in the world because of its open alliance with fascism and anti-Semitism, which the damage from that our culture has never recovered from and never will. But at the moment, it's very clear to me that the most toxic form that religion takes is the Islamic form. The horrible idea of wanting to end up with Sharia, with a religion-governed state, a state of religious law, and that the best means of getting there is jihad, holy war, and that Muslims have a special right to feel aggrieved enough to demand this, I think is an absolute obscene wickedness, and I think their religion is nonsense. And
in its
entirety. The idea of God speaks to some illiterate merchant warlord in Arabia, and he's able to write this down perfectly, and it contains the answers to all human. Don't waste my time. It's bullshit.
But you're saying the same about
it. Also, that God speaks. The Archangel Gabriel speaks only Arabic, it seems.
I just want to say, in retrospect, you were very civil, actually. I don't know what I was thinking.
Is this the same characterization of all religions?
Well, actually, no, because remember, Islam makes one special claim for itself. All religions claim to be revealed truth. They all are founded by divine revelation. But Islam rather dangerously says, ours is the last and final one. There can't be any more after this. This is God's last word. Now, that's straight away a temptation to violence and intolerance, and if you note, it's a temptation they seem quite willing to fall for.
Returning now to our top story, the outrage in the Muslim world over caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad. Any depictions of Muhammad are offensive to the faithful. But in many Western nations, freedom of expression is a sacred right as well, including the freedom to express offensive ideas. Well, for some perspective on this, I spoke with columnist and author Sir Hitchens and Ahmed Yunus with the Muslim Public Affairs Council. This is a debate. They do not pull any punches. And we began by talking about the decision of many media outlets, including CNN, to pixelate the images of Muhammad.
Now, I know, as well as you do, that you have not done that in order to avoid sparing the hurt feelings of my fellow guest. You've done it because you're afraid of retaliation and of intimidation. Now, I'd like to ask him and anyone else who agrees with him who's watching, is that the relationship they want to have with the free press? Because if we have to use this stupid word offensive, those of us who believe in the Enlightenment and the Constitution and the First Amendment are very much offended by this mad, babyish conduct. But we don't go out and kidnap the nearest Muslim we can find and take him hostage till someone apologizes.
Okay.
We don't violate diplomatic immunity. We don't, which is one of the most precious things in the international community, much more precious than the right of Muslims not to have their feelings hurt. The whole thing is a scandal, and we're all running scared from it.
Okay, let's let Ahmed Yunus. Ahmed, jump in here. I know you want to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not about hurt feelings. It's about strategic discourse. The people that we see on TV are... well, hold on, Christopher. The people that we see on TV are less than 1% of the Muslim masses. The gravamen of the discussion here is the vast majority of Muslim moderates that are offended from their role in a post-9/11 and in a conflict-oriented situation, which is at the apex of counterterrorism, at the apex of an engagement, of a discussion of hearts and minds. Of course, freedom of expression stands, and no one is asking the Danish government to stifle expression. But
yes,
freedom of expression...
Yes,
hold on, Christopher. freedom of expression and the responsibilities of discussion, the responsibilities of those with power and privilege to ensure that there is comity between different groups, a belated response by the government, and then a continuing of republishing and reprinting these cartoons. We have freedom of expression here in the United States, but the president and the major media have chosen not to engage. The Pope believes in freedom of expression, but he has condemned these cartoons. It's about strategic
Christopher, I want to let Christopher in here. Christopher, I
mean, what is this babble? The State Department has said that it apologizes and thinks these things are offensive, and it's done so without, as far as I know, any permission from the American people to say that we take that view. I'm glad to hear you say it's only 1% of the Muslim world that takes this opinion. In that case, why are we treating the leaders of these lynch mobs and bullying gangs as if they were representative of your religion?
That's a very good question.
And why is it that we can't get condemnation so easily or at all when, for example, Shia mosques and funeral processions in Iraq are blown up by Muslim fascists?
Look, Christopher,
Isn't that sacrilege to you?
Ahmed Yunus, jump in.
The vast majority of Muslims condemn attacks on Shia communities, condemn attacks on Christian communities in Muslim countries.
Name one.
The Council on American-Islamic Relations sent a delegation to Iraq to try to release Jill Carroll. We have done the same with Margaret Hassan. We engage continuously.
Hostage trading.
We were against the Taliban.
Okay, wait a minute. I want to jump in here for both of you.
Christopher, we don't need Islamic groups in America doing
I got to jump in here because the point is made here, and this comes up over and over again, that when we talk about the most radical of Muslims, they're the ones who get the attention. The whole of the faith gets painted with this brush by the kinds of pictures we're showing today of burning buildings. As awful as it is there a fair point being made here that this clearly is not representative?
Absolutely, and if we look at
Christopher, please.
Well, that's for Muslims to decide. If they want to condemn this, they can, but actually a lot of Muslim governments have instead, and authorities, have instead joined the condemnation of the cartoons and urged the Danish government to bring pressure on the free press in Denmark.
Because
it's absolutely outrageous.
They are opportunists. State actors and non-state actors that are taking this opportunity to pursue their ends is a different discussion. What we are discussing now is why would we offend the very identity of 1.2 billion people who are needed for us to end this era?
No, that's not the question. That's not the question at all.
Why are there anti-Semitic cartoons published all the time in certain Muslim press and Arab press? Let's talk about the anti-Semitic cartoons that are there all the time, and you don't see this kind of reaction from Jews who may be deeply, deeply offended.
You're right. We are all offended, not just Jews. We are all offended when there are anti-Semitic cartoons, and these dictatorships that use the other to galvanize the bases within their countries to support them in their efforts are acting contradictory to the interests of Muslims. We condemn that type of anti-Semitic behavior. We condemn it when it's against any other community, be it by Muslims
that wasn't
like
the
the Taliban.
question. That wasn't the question.
This is the same Europe
that wasn't what you were being asked.
This is the same Europe that had a genocide against Muslims, the largest genocide since the Holocaust. We have got to be strategic. We have got to ensure that we are not negligently bolstering the haters that are finding excuses.
Okay,
I'm not just a potted plant here. He wasn't asked that question. He was asked why, when Jewish people or Christians, or the largest, in my opinion, the most important group in the world, those of us who don't believe in religion and claim the rights of the Enlightenment, when we're offended, you were asked, why don't we take the occasion to go and set fire to embassies of democratic countries or kidnap civilians? That's what you're being asked. You're still claiming Muslims have a special right to be offended, and that is very offensive indeed.
Absolutely not. I am claiming that Muslims have an equal right to find human dignity in the way that they are treated in society. And Christopher, if you feel that there is an attack against you, you have the right to respond. That is the same freedom of speech that you're saying. The Muslims around the world...
Without your permission, with your interruption, that's what I'm doing now.
Okay, gentlemen, time out here for a second. Time out. Christopher, I want to go back to the first point you made, and that is, how newspapers and news organizations make their decisions about this. And you mentioned, CNN's decision to pixelate these. You're right. I mean, partly based on fear of reprisals against our staff, but also partly based on fear of offending. And I want to put it to you this way. I mean, do non-Muslims have any obligation, in your view, to be respectful of this aspect of the Muslim faith and to make an extra effort not to offend?
Look, I'm not asking for the right to slaughter a pig in a mosque or to defecate on a Quran or anything of this kind. I am saying, though, that religion makes very large claims for itself.
Islam claims that it is the total solution to all human problems, and
This is not about Islam.
and that the sooner that it's imposed on everyone, the better. Well, that's a point of view, but it can't. If it's going to make such claims, it has to drop the demand that it be immune from criticism and especially from satire. To many of us, the claims of the Prophet Muhammad, or his claim to be a prophet, are absurd.
Muhammad,
And of course we have the right to do that, just as we have the right to represent unchaste nuns and child-raping priests and the other people who also claim a special right because they claim that their own bigotry is divine.
Ahmed Yunus, why is it so different for the Muslim faith?
This is a fabricated discussion. The issue here is not the freedom of the West and the isolation of the Muslim world. One of the primary goals of Sharia, as studied in classical discourse, is the protection of the products of the mind and the protection of freedom of speech. That's not what we are addressing. We are not asking anyone to follow Islamic law. No one in the world is saying that there should be an inhibition against this type of speech, but what we're saying is those with the ability to move discussions forward for peace, forward for an ability to see each other, they have a responsibility to act. It is not babble, Christopher Hitchens.
Babble. This is not the first time.
These types of cartoons.
This isn't the first time.
These types of
The
cartoons.
religious leader of Islam called for the murder in his own name for money of a novelist living in England who wasn't a Muslim.
Who is this religious leader of Islam? We are Muslims, sir. We all represent ourselves. Our tradition has been clear.
The Ayatollah Khomeini did not consider you his equal, let's say.
The tradition of the Prophet is clear, comity between all people, religious freedom for all people, even those that do not believe in God.
We
are the vicegerents of that matter.
We have to leave it there, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
They claim a special right, and they claim it at gunpoint and by force.
No, Christopher, that's the last word, gentlemen. Christopher Hitchens and Ahmed Yunus.
Offensive.
Both of you, it's been spirited, it's been interesting, and it's going to continue. That much is to be sure. Thank you both for being here.
Don't waste my time. It's bullshit.
But you're
Christopher, fear isn't exactly the same thing as hate. Christopher, isn't it possible to fear Islam or some aspects of it and be free of hate and not be a bigot?
Well, phobia, I think, as well as meaning fear, does imply dislike, and I dislike Islam as I dislike all religion. I'm just astounded there by the turn the discussion has taken. Every day, all the time, we have to hear propaganda pumped out of radio stations across the Muslim world, telling children to kill Jews, telling children to kill Hindus, telling children to kill Christians, telling them that their sisters and mothers and aunts are inferior, telling them that homosexuals should be stoned. We have to read and claim not to be offended about the stoning of 10 people in the Islamic Republic of Iran in the last week alone for crimes that they did not commit. There would not be crimes except under the mad religious laws that Islam proposes. Mr. Hooper has to get used to this idea. Some of us find that offensive too, but we don't demand that he be shut down or be prosecuted. We put up with his self-pity. We put up with his rantings and his distortions because we believe in the First Amendment. All we ask in return is that he upholds. All we demand in return is he upholds the First Amendment too.
We love the First Amendment. We uphold it every day. And the First Amendment also protects free expression of religion, and when you engage in acts of intimidation against a religious group, that goes against the First Amendment.
Dennis Prager, you get the last word tonight.
You haven't read, you have neither read nor understood the First Amendment, sir.
Mr. Hooper said that he welcomes criticism of Islam. Can one say that women, as a rule, are treated better in the Western world than the Islamic world? Is one who says that, is that person an Islamophobe?
No, yes we discuss that issue every day.
So one can say that. So one can say that and not be accused.
Again, you set up a false premise. We discuss that kind of issue all the time.
I asked that.
And by the way, the website that Mr. Prager is defending, the website that Mr. Prager is defending says that we should make the life of Muslims in the West so difficult they will leave.
Gentlemen, I've got to leave it there.
That I don't agree with. I do not agree with that sentence.
Well, then tell Mr. Spencer that.
I wish we had more time to continue this, but we don't. Christopher Hitchens, Ibrahim Hooper, Dennis Prager, thank you all.
Thank you.
Don't waste my time. It's bullshit.
But you're